All right, continuing with our piece here. Continue with our piece. Let's go ahead and bring this beak down, because the beak is going to be brought down to a pretty thin. So we want to be careful, of course. We want to be careful not to get too rambunctious. And okay, let's go back here. Let's take some of this off in here. Work from side to side, folks. Work from side to side. I'm sorry if I repeat myself sometimes when I say things. I'm bad about that. I'm bad about that. No, I did that on purpose. I get into carving, and one thing I want you to understand is when you do videos or something like that, there's you have to pay attention to what you're doing, but you have to watch yourself. That's how you keep from cutting yourself and stuff. So you get into doing the carving, and you often forget sometimes what you're saying or whatever. And I'm not making an excuse for my bad use of language, okay? But that happens a lot of times. I've got to watch. When you're a carver, you have to watch your hands. You have to watch your, you know, so that you don't cut yourself. You have to watch all those things, and you want to be careful. Okay, now we're getting down to the area that you want. Now, take light cuts, folks. When you get into these areas, see how light of cuts I'm taking? Don't get in a hurry. Don't try to take, a guy wrote me the other day, said, well, it broke. You know, I got to a light area, or an area on my boot, and it broke. And I said, well, a lot of times what happens is we think that I can put the same amount of pressure up here that when, like when I'm doing carving down here, I can put the same amount of pressure here that I do up here. No, you can't do that, folks. When you get to a thin area, you have to apply, and you'll get used to it, apply a small amount of pressure so that you don't break it off. And that's it's like handling a baby, you know. Well, you know, handling a baby and handling an adult are two different things. My son works in the business that, you know, they in the home health business type thing, and handling an older person sometimes is a lot harder than handling, you have to be a little bit more gentle with them because they hurt and they have problems with them. So, and a baby is the same thing. You know, you have to be careful with a baby. You can't just toss him around like an adult, you know. Alright, now let's see. When I get down in this area, that's what I like about these projects too. It helps sort of train using the knife. See how little I'm taking off there? Just barely scraping it off there. And the wood is strong, don't get me wrong. But don't get overly excited to get things done. And that's how you break things, okay? Now wood is great because you can glue things back together again. But see how I'm just barely taking a little bit off at a time? Just like slivers. And I'm just barely hitting it with that knife. So you want to be careful when you get into these areas. Because I get a lot of messages from a lot of people about, man, I almost finished my carving and I got down to the delicate area and I broke it. So, and that just comes with learning, folks. That's all it does. Okay. See the how small I'm taking? In these areas I'm just taking off. We're almost through with this guy. To be honest with you. Okay. Very simple projects, nothing out of the ordinary. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to take and I want to just kind of do this. Where the beak is, separate the beak from the and all I'm going to do is just kind of do this number, not deep now, just very lightly. Very lightly. There, just like that, see? Separate that beak from we're not going to go into great detail on eyes or anything like that. In fact, I don't even think these things had eyes. They were abstract. Look at that, see? Now if you want to put eyes in them, you can. I want to take a little bit more off this. Now the neck around here, because the grain changes so much, be very careful. Not so much in breaking it, but taking off too many pieces. There we go. We're just about finished with him. And as you see, the sides are kind of flat a little bit. They're carved, but they're flat. And then you have just a tiny bit of roundness to the top up here. Like that's what I say. It's not a hard project. And sort of a slant to the back here. All right, he's done. There we go. Now let's get our other fella here, and as we know, our beak will be somewhere around in here, and we're going to do the same thing. Now I want you to look for a minute after you cut some. Look at the grain is running this way, and then it's running cross grain this way. So you want to be careful, of course, when you get down to the beak, and you want to be careful in the neck area here, just like we were with the other ones, okay? So let's take it, start taking off areas. Now this is a little bit harder to handle because the head is down here like this. In other words, I'm talking about handling it with your hands. You know, when I go to, like right here, I had no problem with this cut. Then I go to do the same cut and the head's in the way. Okay. So, okay. So we want to be careful as we work with this piece. Especially around the neck in here, in those areas, we want to be very, very careful and watch our grain, watch how we do them. And on our beak especially, because we're actually going cross grain with this, so we want to be very, very careful in this area. Because this one, excuse me, this one, the grain was going this way, was going straight, so it carved real easily. But when you get on the cross grain here, you want to be careful. It can be easily broken, so you want to just be careful, that's all. One of the keys to wood carving is learning something about the wood, how the grain acts, how the grain, whenever you're carving, because it's very important, folks. I'm not trying to stress something a whole lot. I'm just trying to tell you it's very important that you understand grain in a wood. So when it gets to a point where you know, I get letters all the time from people that go, I don't understand, this doesn't carve right, or something else like that. And what they've done, they bandsaw their piece out against the grain, and it's not, they didn't take any consideration for which way the grain was going. So, and they said, man, it was just almost impossible to carve. Well, that's what happens. So, and I want to make your carving experience enjoyable for you, not a pain. So that's one of the things you have to learn. All right, we're about videoed up here.